James Gunn has revealed his slate for the DC universe. How's everyone on YouTube doing? It's TikTok Tommy Boy here, and in today's video I'm going to be discussing my opinion on the 8 to 10 year plan that James Gunn has for the DC universe. So recently, as everyone knows, James Gunn released his plan for the DC universe. He revealed how the projects will be taking place after the Flash. The Flash is going to act as a reset of the DC universe. Think of it like a crisis event. And the plans that he has in place for that. He's revealed the title of his new Superman movie is going to be entitled Superman Legacy, set for release in 2025. He's revealed Brave and the Bold, which will be a new Batman movie centered around him and his son Damian Wayne. He has revealed the Creature Commandos, which is a team that has like the Frankenstein monster, Rick Flag's father, which is Rick Flag Sr., and all these other amazing projects, both in film and television, that sound like they'll have real potential. But the one thing I noticed as I saw the reactions to it on social media was the amount of laughing faces or laughing emojis that people had posted and in posts about it. And the kind of overall reaction to being like, "Oh, this is terrible. This is going to be he's ruining the DC universe." I know a lot of people have said, "Oh, this is Snyderverse fans trying to say that they speak for the DC universe. They're not true DC fans, or it's Marvel fans trying to interfere." One, I don't believe that Marvel fans would, and if they do, then I would say that that's a very toxic way of going about it. I personally love both Marvel and DC. I know there's people who prefer Marvel, people who prefer DC. I personally love both. And then the Snyderverse, as much as it sucks about the Snyderverse and that's not happening, you know, I don't think it's James Gunn's fault. In my opinion, it is not James Gunn's fault. It's down to the studio that was and how they ran the DC universe. It was down to Warner Brothers, and they have a history of interfering in the DC universe and its projects. Supergirl's first solo movie, Superman 3, was originally supposed to have Brainiac, but they interfered and it ultimately didn't happen. The development hell that was Superman Lives, the Batman franchise being on ice till till the 2000s with the Dark Knight trilogy, and I say I don't mean to intend ice as a pun because of Batman and Robin. And I'm not going to get into a whole debate about that. I'll go a whole rant rather than debate about Batman and Robin because it was terrible. Loved it as a child, but it's a terrible movie to look back on. And it's something I laugh at now when I watch it again. It's an adult. Even Zack Snyder's vision was interfered with. Instead of putting the movie on hold, which would have been upsetting for fans, but even still, we would have gotten Zack Snyder's Justice League as the main Justice League movie instead of what they did do, which is where they brought Joss Whedon in to remake everything and release the movie for its 2017 release date. They were only thinking about the money that they could make. They weren't thinking about the DC fans at all. They were just thinking, "Oh, if we get this movie out now, it'll it'll make us a ton of money." So they have a history of interfering in projects around the DC universe. What I find fascinating about James Gunn's plan is that he's looking to bring in characters that are very obscure, very lesser known to maybe the mainstream media, unless you've read the comic books, like Booster Gold, the Creature Commandos, as I previously said, the Authority, which are part of the Wildstorm universe, which introduces characters like Midnighter, Apollo, who were their versions of Superman and Batman, or they were very, very similar to Superman and Batman. I think it has a lot of potential. And I don't get this whole thing of judging projects before they're ever released. People judged The Batman when it came out last year. I personally loved it. I thought it was a very unique interpretation of Batman. I thought Robert Pattinson was phenomenal as Batman. I know a lot of people didn't agree, but I was in the same boat of, oh, not the actor from Twilight, not the sparkly vampire from Twilight. And his interpretation of Batman blew me out of the water. It was unlike anything I'd ever seen before, and I thought it was phenomenal. His Bruce Wayne needs a bit of work, I'll agree, but I think that's the story they're trying to tell. Is that in the first movie, he was addicted. It was almost like he was addicted to being to being Batman. And I know somebody's probably going to edit me saying a dick. And feel free to. I caught that moment. I caught that mistake myself. But I think the story of the sequels is going to be kind of more about him embracing the role of being Bruce Wayne and being the public face, and that he can help Gotham City in more than just his vigilantism. People said that Heath Ledger was going to be a terrible Joker because of Brokeback Mountain. To this day, he's considered the greatest Joker of all time, one of the greatest Jokers of all time. I'm not excluding the legendary Mark Hamill, who was the definitive Joker voice in my opinion, and someone that as an aspiring voice actor, someone that I look up to. Even Michael Keaton had gotten heat about being cast as Batman because of his comedic roles. People thought, oh, no way will he be able to play Batman seriously. This is going to be terrible. And he's one of the most beloved interpretations of Batman out there. I quite enjoy his performance myself, and I'm speaking as a Batfleck fan. And I'm saying I've enjoyed Michael Keaton's interpretation, and I've enjoyed Robert Pattinson's interpretation, and that's including the fact that, yeah, both Batfleck and Keaton have broken the Batman no killing rule, which is something that the Pattinson version has going for it. It's sticking to that. It's being accurate. It's being faithful to the source material. Well, an interpretation of the source material. I've seen a lot of Earth One references in that movie, and I think there's a lot of potential for what James Gunn is trying to do, especially if he lives up to his promise and says that directors are going to have more creative control. That was the big issue with any of the DC movies we have had released and the TV shows, is studio interference, telling directors what they can and cannot do. If they're given more create oh, excuse me. If they're given more creative control, then the amount of phenomenal stories I think that we'll see, once they're faithful to the DC universe, once they're faithful to the comic books, and at the same time try to be something that's never been done before, I think we'll have a phenomenal cinematic universe for the DC universe. And I'm not saying it'll be better than Marvel, but it will be in line with Marvel. And maybe that might encourage Marvel to do a little bit better, because they have been very lackadaisy with their Phase 4 projects. Some of them were a hit, some of them were questionable. I think that's because they have no competition currently that's driving them to be better. But at the same time, they're clear about the story they want to tell. They have their plan, they have their characters, they flesh out their characters. And I'm speaking as someone who grew up on the Tobey Maguire movies. That was my first introduction to comic book movies, and the live action interpretation. So it was the first live action interpretation of Spider-Man I'd seen. I know there was Nicholas Hammond in the '70s before Tobey Maguire, and the Japanese Spider-Man as well. And like a lot of fans, I grew up on those movies. I enjoyed them. They're my favorite, one of my favorite versions of Spider-Man to this day. And I know I'm going a bit off topic by bringing in Marvel to this, but there's a parallel here to be made. At that time, the idea of a cinematic universe of Marvel characters was unheard of. It is something they've been trying to get off the ground, but it had been unheard of. While Spider-Man, X-Men, Blade were successes, their failures were trying to get a Hulk franchise off the ground, Fantastic Four, and so on. Fast forward to the Avengers movie and the first phase of the Marvel Cinematic Universe: Iron Man, Hulk, Thor, Captain America. And it does phenomenally. It becomes a blockbuster hit. And as the cinematic universe expands with phase one, phase two, phase three, into phase four, and soon phase five with Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantum Mania, they introduce characters that at that time were obscure to the main media. Like when I was growing up, the idea of a Doctor Strange movie was just a dream. It was a fever dream, something that sounded like it'd be a great idea, but something they had been struggling to get off the ground. We now have that, and it has a sequel. You know, they've done a live action interpretation of Moon Knight. There's finally a live action version of She Hulk now. Again, you can have your opinions on that, but at the same time, at least there's a live action version of that character out there now. And I think James Gunn is potentially doing the same with this, introducing Booster Gold in a TV series. The Wildstorm characters that they could very much, it could evolve to the point where they'll introduce a character, other characters that are very obscure. Like personally, one I'd love to see purely because of childhood nostalgia, and I've read the newer comics, or at least the first few issues of the newer comics, is Static Shock. I would love to see a interpretation of Static Shock done in live action. There is so much potential that they could do, and even the idea of doing a Batman movie introducing Damian Wayne, the potential to expand and introduce the other members of the Bat family: Dick Grayson, Nightwing; Jason Todd, Red Hood; Tim Drake, Robin, or Red Robin. There is so much potential there, and even going back and trying to do Batgirl again would be phenomenal. Now, in terms of casting for who I think should play these characters, I'm not too sure who you could cast as Superman. I've seen people's thoughts and ideas. I personally have to actually think on who I think should play Superman. In terms of a new Batman, if they're not bringing back Ben Affleck, which it looks likely, I think Jensen Ackles could be a interesting choice to play a Batman in his prime. He's familiar with the DC universe. He's voiced Batman in a few projects. He's voiced Jason Todd in Batman Under the Red Hood. He's someone who's familiar with the character, that universe, and what it should be. And I think he'd have great potential to bring a Batman in his prime to life. Um, it's interesting that they're going to try and flesh out some the Wonder Woman mythos with Paradise Lost, which is going to be all about the Themyscira and the island of the Amazons. There's great potential there, in my opinion. And the thing of not judging before it comes out. I think once it's out there, if it's crap, it's crap. But if it's phenomenal, it's phenomenal. If it's good, it's good. You can have it be good but not great, but still have the potential to make it better. Or you could just have it be a complete insult to the DC universe. And well, there's a lot of ideas, I think, because he's already even said that they've already planned out chapter 2. And that's big, that's big ambition there. That you've already planned out your chapter 2 before chapter 1 has even fully officially started. Swamp Thing could be an amazing horror movie if it was written right. You get the right director and the right actor to portray Swamp Thing. And then speaking finally on the whole thing with Henry Cavill, it sucks that Henry Cavill is not going to be back as Superman. He was my favorite interpretation of Superman in recent years. I'm sure he is for a lot of people. It sucks the way they went about it. That they told him he was coming back as Superman. He was in a cameo in Black Adam. Spoilers if you haven't seen it, but at this point, if you haven't seen it, it's your loss. Only then to tell him that he's not coming back at all. Again, and the fact that he had left The Witcher, one of the reasons to do so was to focus more on Superman. The other reason was a disagreement with Netflix that they weren't portraying The Witcher like it is in the books. I mean, if you watch Henry Cavill's interviews, you'll know he's a big. It's like he's one of the DC fandom, or just a fan of pop culture in general. It's like watching a fan talk about being an actor, in my opinion. But at the same time, the Superman role was there before Henry Cavill, and it'll be there long after him as well. There were plenty of actors who have played Superman before Henry Cavill, and there'll be plenty more. Whether we like it or not, there'll be plenty more that will play him after. Like personally, I like the CW's version of Superman as well, and Superman and Lois. I think he does a great job as Superman. I still prefer Henry Cavill, but I like his interpretation as well. No, I think, in my opinion, a true DC fan is someone who not only enjoys the comic books, but is there for the movies, TV shows, and video games. Whether that be they're great or they're terrible. And if they're terrible, yes, it's upsetting to see our favorite characters get so wronged. But at the same time, with the good comes the bad. That's the same with the Marvel side of things as well. So I think it's a matter of giving it a chance. When it's out and it's terrible, then fair enough. But at least he gave it a chance. You know, it's it's something to really good because going off of biased judgments, I think it's one of the unhealthy things about the fandom of DC and even a few other fandoms in pop culture. Judging something before it's even been done. If you're going to judge before it's released, then I don't think you're going to fully enjoy it because you'll be so blinded by your own pre-existing judgments of it that you won't be able to see it for what it is. And that's something I've learned to do. in even in more recent years. Because as I said, I thought Robert Pattinson was going to be terrible as Batman. I was like, oh god, why did you cast the sparkly vampire from Twilight? Why? And then I was, you know, surprised by what I'd seen. And that's the other side of it. Is I can't wait to see. It's great to see that those franchises will still be continuing under a DC Elseworlds banner. That will have the Batman Part Two. We'll have a Joker sequel and a few other projects. I think it's interesting. Like it's been rumored that there'll be a DC kind of Elseworlds label for movies and TV shows, and it's great to kind of see that that's official now. So to summarize, I think there's great potential there. There's potential to make the DC universe not only consistent with its storytelling and its vision, and to finally get its cinematic universe off the ground. But I think there'll be a renaissance. I think of the DC universe, because once you introduce these obscure characters, and I see it myself when I go to my local comic shop or store, as they say in the US, that people come in, they've seen a character in a movie or TV show that they weren't completely familiar with, and they ask for comic books to read up on them, get to know them more, and form a relationship with that character. I think that's the interesting thing of it is it's fiction, yes, absolutely, but at the same time it's a one of the things I love about the Marvel and DC universe is its escapism. You get to escape into a world that's fantastical and just hard to put into words at times. It's a great way to get out to get lost in a world of storytelling. And I'm sure a lot of people can agree with me when I say that we need that, especially when the real world can be a very unpredictable and very dangerous place. There's a lot of uncertainty that we deal with in our daily lives. And to have something like that to kind of, you know, show us that not everything is so dark and full of despair is an amazing feeling, I think. And I think it's fascinating as well to see, just how many new fans get into comic books because they've seen a character in a movie or TV show. Like the amount of people I've seen asking more about Doctor Strange for the Marvel side, or Doctor Fate recently from the DC side because of Black Adam. It's incredible. So I think it's worth giving a chance. And if it turns out that it is terrible, then I will probably make an entire rant video, and this video will basically be irrelevant. But that's my opinions on it. And feel free to let me know your opinions in the comments. Just all I ask is just to be respectful and not to start a whole heated, comment war in the comment section. And just quickly to say that, once again, that I appreciate all your support. I've seen a lot of new subscribers, and of course, welcome to all those new subscribers to the channel. I have a lot of new content planned. I've seen that my Legends videos for Star Wars are doing well. I recently did my own interpretations of Jason Solo, Darth Kaitis, and Darth Krayt. and I'm glad that people are enjoying those and want to see more. I've plenty more of that planned. There's a few collaborations and a few other projects I've been working on when I haven't been posting my own videos. So they'll be coming very soon. One of which I can tell you about is after seeing how popular my Red Hood video was doing and my own interpretation of that character, I am collaborating with a fellow voiceover channel and a very good friend of mine, Daniel Voices Comics. As his name implies, he is also a voiceover actor. He does a lot of his videos are now like myself. He's not a official actor per se, but his voiceover work is phenomenal. I very much thought when I came across his channel first that he was. It was like listening to a proper of like professional voice actor like the likes of Mark Hamill and so on, or the late great Kevin Conroy. And he's a very good friend of mine as well. So if you haven't checked out his videos yet, go check him out. He's phenomenal. We've done a few collaborations in the past. Where I voiced Solomon Grundy, I voiced the Hulk for him in a few videos. And we're working currently on a take on Under the Red Hood, where I'll be voicing Red Hood and he'll be voicing Batman. So keep an eye out for that. His content is phenomenal, and most of all, he's an absolute gentleman. So be sure to check out his channel as well. And I'll see all you guys in the next one.